There's a great urgency to this day. We want to get our ashes, even if it means this year using a cotton swab for safety. Those ashes remind us of the reality of our frail, mortal condition. They call us to a change, to draw close to the one who alone makes sense of this crazy human riddle. The Word of God that we have heard here today bids us to come back to God with all of our hearts. Now, right now is the favorable time. This is the day of salvation. Do something. Just don't make a big show of it. But this is Ash Wednesday. It's kind of the coolest day of Lent. But often in practice, the reality of the 40 days of Lent is rather dull. You know, we give up a little something. We might say a couple of extra prayers. We might make a little donation. And as the weeks go on, sometimes our fervor kind of fades, like the black mark on our foreheads. Maybe we just don't want to be disturbed too much. I mean, after all, it's been a hard year. We're in the midst of a pandemic. Isn't life difficult enough? Do we have to make it worse? But hasn't God been so good to us? I mean, despite all the struggles, think of it. And don't we want to know this great God better? To draw closer to God's perfect goodness? Doesn't Jesus show us the merciful face of the Father? And in the end, isn't Jesus our only hope? And what about this fact? You and I were going to die someday. Remember, you are dust, and unto dust you shall return. So let's really do this, friends. Although you might not be able to receive ashes as an outward sign, still, I really encourage you, make the inner step. Concentrate this year, perhaps much more, on the movement of the heart, more than the outward show in the imposition of ashes. We don't need necessarily to make a big show about our Lenten practices. Jesus warns his disciples in the gospel today pretty clearly about that. Today, in the coming days, sit quietly in prayer. Really fast until it hurts. Go out of yourself in charity in ways that you never have before. For God has created us from dust and has redeemed us by the suffering and the death and the resurrection of his beloved Son. Can't we give a little back? Allow yourself to be broken a bit over the next 40 days. Put a smile on God's face.